All right, welcome to the Week 2 Forum. This week our topic is everyone's favorite whipping boy, liberalism. Why has liberalism found itself a target of both the far left and the far right? An important factor is liberalism's commitment to individual liberty and to rule of law. Critics of liberalism from the right reject liberalism's commitment to equality of opportunity and the commitment to reducing economic equality. Critics from the left find liberals' commitment to social welfare to be half-hearted and ineffectual as a remedy to what they see as capitalism's inherently exploitative defects. Neither the left nor the right agree that individual rights deserve the kind of priority over other values and organizing principles that liberalism places upon those things like rights and liberties. So I think we need to know something about the origins of liberalism in order to understand how it functions as an ideology. Liberalism emerges as a political ideology from the gradual dissolution of feudalism and the emergence of capitalism, and of the commitment to individual rights that was informed by the rejection of feudal notions of ascribed status and religious conformity. Ascribed status simply meant that a person's place in society was conferred by accident of birth. If you were born a peasant, then you were a peasant and essentially tied to the land. Conversely, if you were born into a noble household, you would subsequently enjoy all the rights and privileges of the nobility. Likewise, religious conformity was a byproduct of the Catholic Church, whose organizing principle was the suppression of heresy and the resulting near maniacal commitment to orthodoxy. So one of the crucial factors in contributing to the emergence of liberalism was the Protestant Reformation, which was hardly liberal in any reconcilable or recognizable sense, except in the German reformist conviction that salvation was a matter of personal conscience. It wasn't up to the church as to whether a person's soul would be saved. Rather, it was a question of whether a person had accepted Christ as his or her Savior into their hearts. That move opens doors that Martin Luther probably didn't anticipate and began to condition parts of Europe to the idea that individuals deserve to be treated with equal dignity. Over time, that perspective takes on greater and greater significance. Another important shaping event for liberalism is the 30 Years' War, which embroiled much of Europe in bitter fighting over the Habsburg Emperor Ferdinand II's attempt to reimpose Catholic dominion over the remainder of the Holy Roman Empire and the resulting resistance of the northern German states who had gone over to Protestantism. Out of this internecine warfare came two important liberal commitments. The first was the idea of the right of rebellion, or the right of revolution. And the second was the importance and the value of toleration. We can discuss the idea that people have a right to rebel against their rulers in the forum. I wanted to speak for a moment on the notion of toleration, which I find in increasingly short supply in our contemporary discourse. So why do liberals place such a value on toleration? England happened to be one of the European nations with numerous religious minorities as a result of the Protestant Reformation. John Locke's letter concerning toleration was written in support of, actually probably preface to Parliament's passage to the Toleration Act of 1689, which granted the freedom of worship to many of the dissenting sects, Protestant sects that had split away from the Anglican Church. So what was the basic argument for toleration? For Locke and for most liberals, it begins with a basic premise. Compelling someone to conform to a particular religion is not of their choosing, is simply wrong. And part of the reason why it's wrong is that as a matter of public policy, it's counterproductive. A government that compels religious conformity is likely to produce hypocrites rather than genuinely devout citizens. Locke's beliefs that all right-thinking believers have a duty to remonstrate with those who they believe are in mortal error. He believes that, but beyond that, remonstration should not move to active punishment, but rather we should tolerate or put up with those whose convictions appear to outwardly to be eccentric or even wrong. The issue here too is that toleration is absolutely a doctrine of limits, right? Are liberals required to tolerate groups who advance decidedly illiberal ends, or those whose beliefs threaten public order? Locke said no, and in fact, he argued that neither Catholics nor atheists deserve to be tolerated. He contended, with regard, for example, to atheists, that the taking away of God, even though in thought, dissolves all. How can you trust someone who can't swear to God, right? In other words, you can't trust an atheist who has no discernible belief system to swear to. So toleration as a political or moral doctrine is innately subject to limits, and those limits have evolved over time. But some element of toleration is necessary for a government that follows rule of law and that wishes to avoid arbitrary governance. Today, most liberals are prepared to tolerate Catholics and atheists, as well as other belief systems that include those who do embrace decidedly illiberal beliefs. How would you apply the idea of toleration today, where ideological, temperatures run so hot? Uh, the belief in tolerance highlights something important about liberalism. Liberals believe that the human condition can be improved but not perfected. That sense of constraint is one of the most important distinctions between liberalism and socialism, where liberals accept an essentially messy reality created by capitalism. Many socialists reject the basic legitimacy of capitalism as innately inegalitarian and would replace capitalism with an economic system that guaranteed economic, social, and political equality. I mentioned earlier that liberalism emerged on a parallel track with capitalism, and indeed, many political theorists argue that a central justification of liberalism is as a kind of argument or an apology for the conditions that facilitate capitalism. From a liberal perspective, capitalism provides the clearest avenue for individuals to pursue their self-interests. By providing the conditions necessary for free markets, liberalism facilitates the free exchange of goods and services, which provides the clearest basis for creating and maintaining a healthy economy. From there, the relationship between liberalism and capitalism becomes a bit more complicated because over time, capitalism begins to produce levels of affluence that completely dwarfs any previous mode of economic production and produces dangerous levels of economic inequality, which threatens to undermine another vital set of liberal values, right? Rule of law and equality of opportunity. The vast inequalities of the Industrial Revolution created the first great divide within liberalism between those classical liberals who continued to believe that personal autonomy required a laissez-faire approach to the relationship between government and the economy, and welfare liberals who believed that capitalism needed to be regulated in order to ensure equality of opportunity. So, hopefully this mini lecture will give you enough guidance to participate knowledgeably this week. Let me know of any issues that I haven't addressed that you don't understand, and I'll be happy to help you out within the context of the forum. I'll close with a quote from the late Judith Shklar, who was a Latvian emigre and Harvard political scientist, and one of the first female presidents of the American Political Science Association, who argued in an essay entitled "The Liberalism of Fear" that liberalism's deepest grounding is in place from the first, in the conviction of the earliest defenders of toleration, born in horror, that cruelty is an absolute evil, an offense against God or humanity. It is out of that tradition that the political liberalism of fear arose and continues amid the terror of our time to have relevance. What thoughts does that quotation provoke in your minds? Let's talk about it.